episode of the Comic Cinematic Universe, and with Chill and Grace. And I'm a little everywhere. We got a few topics that we're going to talk about. Plus, I'm just getting in from work, so I'm still kind of just settling down, getting home, trying to chill. I just scarfed down a sandwich from Jersey Mike's and sat down. So here's me, Grace. What's
Dude,
good?
I feel like we're in the same vibes. I literally just scarfed down like a big chicken and like a small fries
Right.
and quickly set everything up. So,
Mm-hmm.
this is what happens. We have like a week off. It's like we're all out of whack, you
Yeah,
know. But
a little bit everywhere, but we're
that's
back.
all right. We're on like Thanksgiving break, much needed, and we're
Mm-hmm.
back here getting ready to start talking about all things Guardians. I feel like this was so perfect. Like there was like the rumor that we were gonna be getting the trailer the day that we did, and I was like, oh my god, we really should because we were gonna be talking about the holiday special anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily it did. So here we are.
When you say rumor, like everybody, when it comes down to like, I look on Instagram. Grace posts is like, rumor is Guardians trailer dropping. I'm just like, where is she getting this information? Is like, who's her insider? I'm not getting rumors like updates on my gram. You know what I'm saying? So Grace, you gotta get me in there for real, for real.
I follow, hey, that's okay. I follow many pages, a plethora of. So I get all of like the fan theories
Mm-hmm.
and the confirmations, all of those things, just for you guys.
All right. Well, what do you want to tackle first? Just because with the three topics that we're talking about today, we're talking about two of them are Guardians related. The first one would be, let's say, the Guardian specials, and then we're going to talk about the Guardian trailer. But the third one is going to be almost kind of like a backtrack to what we kind of talked about before, which was uh, more so about the adamantium conversation. Like, say we kind of broke it down a little bit in just talking to you all, but say I actually took some time and I actually did some research putting together this timeline. Not even like research, like typing it in, but like just having to just check out just some of the movies just to kind of fact check, not only just MCU movies, but the Fox related movies. So we ended up posting a timeline, and everything that you see on our Instagram with that timeline that's Fox related, I didn't want to put an exact year. I just wanted to kind of like a guesstimation in comparison to the Fox timeline. So I hope it all makes sense or made sense. Grace, what did you think about it?
Oh, I feel like it was so perfect because we were having this discussion at the last episode, and I feel like honestly, based on just our memory, we did pretty decent kind of pinpointing like the
Sure.
years when these things happened.
Mm-hmm.
Just because especially now that we've had Wakanda Forever, a big topic of Wakanda Forever is basically the rest of the world tampering with vibranium, and I can't think of a more like I don't want to say like F you to Wakanda way, but kinda, than to literally tampering with it on a molecular level to make something that is actually stronger and that is adamantium. And so I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that conversation blended so well just with that being a topic. And it's something we can easily assume will probably be of conversation down the road because we know Wolverine's confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
All of this is blended together. We've seen the things in She-Hulk. Um, that is like without a question now part of the MCU. And so knowing the history of adamantium, it makes sense that we'll probably be getting like some form of a reaction from Wakanda once they find out this is in the world. And so timeline wise, I think we were really looking to find where could this kind of fall in place. When did the vibranium escape Wakanda and then
Mm-hmm.
end up with Stryker? And
I just put the timeline up on the screen. So if
perfect.
you want to kind of like break it down as we go, because at the end of the day, the questions that I asked in it, like initially, of course, you see it opens up with like a quick little intro on adamantium, and I'm sure everybody's heard about it. They've always known that Wolverine has had it, but with all this news of Wolverine coming into this universe, we're kind of we're trying to figure out or more so speculate, I guess, when and where that's going to come into play. And just from the comics, yes, like Grace mentioned last week, because she said she actually did the research, finding out that adamantium is made of vibranium, and like it's like a mixture with steel or whatnot. Um, we kind of broke it down, and like just for starters, we brought up Howard Stark first, just because that is where the quote unquote leaks start of vibranium out of Wakanda. Does that make sense, Grace?
Repeat that one more time for me.
Howard Stark getting vibranium,
Mm-hmm.
that's a quote unquote the first leakage out of Wakanda, because we have
Yes.
no idea how he got it, and to make Captain America's shield. So he's kind of like the starter of like the leaks out of Wakanda.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that they actually haven't really addressed it, like in terms of Wakanda specifically, because it's like it's such a big part of their history when what's his name? The guy who does steal it, we see in Age of
Claw.
Ultron, Claw, right?
Mm-hmm.
When like when he steals it from Wakanda, it is such a wound to the whole country. Like everyone knows who he is,
Mm-hmm.
everyone knows of this event. And so it's interesting that there isn't very much conversation about, the vibranium that escaped Wakanda to create the shield, because that predates Claw. So
Mm-hmm.
we know that there was like a breach before that event even had happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is kind of surprising that, with it being known that the shield is made of vibranium, obviously we see like Black Panther interact with Cap. Like this isn't not known.
Right.
So it's just interesting that we haven't had like a direct or concrete mention of how that escaped Wakanda, and also why the Wakandans don't push to get it back, because they're very much about that. Like if there's vibranium somewhere and they get a pinpoint on it, like
Mm-hmm.
they are all about getting it back with Wakanda. We saw that in the first Black Panther film. So it's very
Right.
interesting.
And random. Uh, this is going to be a stretch here. Just in kind of talks of kind of same time frame. We have no idea what Bucky's first arm is made of. Correct.
We don't. It's not vibranium, not the first one.
Okay, just checking. We know the second one is for sure, and somehow it made it into and it made its way to space. But we'll get to that
Yeah, we'll get to
in
that.
a
We'll get
second.
to that.
But okay, so right now, Howard Stark is more so the spark of this conversation, and the next one we go to we like I brought up William Stryker just because out of the whole Fox slash X Men franchise, they've had three different strikers, but he's always been the man to give Wolverine not necessarily the claws, but gave him the adamantium to cover his claws and his whole skeleton. So he has been kind of just been like a point. No matter how many variants of it, he has been made like the person to give Wolverine the adamantium. And though with the three different strikers, I think if anything, there's quote unquote two of them, which was from I think X2 and uh, X Men Origins Wolverine. We can technically say they're the same striker, just because, like I said, I mentioned later in the timeline, it resets after Days of Future Past, and then we get a different striker, which happens to be the younger one. But if anything, just based off of everything, it looks like they all kind of come together more so in the 70s or whatnot to find, they say, a rock, right? And we're just going to assume the rock, which they didn't break down in the movie of X Men Origins, but we're going to assume that's vibranium because that's just the science of this adamantium conversation. So it's easy just to assume that if Marvel Studios does continue with that timeline, then Striker is kind of just a moment in the 70s that we haven't really kind of established here in the MCU.
Yeah, it's a lot to break down because we don't really know how the X-Men are going to blend in the MCU. We haven't really seen it. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think the closest thing we can at least confirm is, Deadpool and Wolverine, since
Mm-hmm.
that's been confirmed. And even then, I don't even think they've started filming.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're quite a ways away before we can get something like that. And in terms of like Strucker, obviously, like the timeline with the X-Men is so everywhere because it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like they didn't do a great job of making it cohesive and
Right.
synergistic with the other films, nor do I think it was like their intention at that time, because that wasn't really the standard before the MCU did it. Like the MCU just kind of, set that like expectation. But I
But
feel
I can argue that just from, let's say, I feel like every time we get like a Wolverine like flashback or something, whether Professor X is looking back in his mind, it's always showing different events from like all the movies. So I think he's like the constant that kind of makes it. I don't want to say one timeline, but I think he's the one person that makes it all make sense. I don't know.
yeah, and like in regards to that, what I was going to say was that with like Strucker, like yes, we see like kind of three different ones, but it's more so because of the age, not because I think it's three different Struckers. You know what I mean? It's just like we're looking at them throughout the time span.
Sure.
Obviously, Wolverine doesn't change very much, but he does because he ages like a normal human.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like kind of like what you said, I feel like Wolverine's is probably the best one in terms of having something that is pretty consistent.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the continuity matches up with him pretty well. And then you have all kinds of things that just aren't necessarily uh consistent in that regard. But that's totally fine. So we'll see
Sure.
like what blends into the MCU, but one part of it that is like without question is the adamantium. And then so it's a conversation that I think is around the corner, and so I'm really excited that we kind of started to lay out the foundation now. So once we get a little bit more tidbits and little clues of its like approaching into the MCU,
Mm-hmm.
we can kind of like fill in those gaps. But remind me because I don't have the timeline in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Did the event with Ulysses Claw in Wakanda happen before or after we know Wolverine got like the upgrade with the adamantium skeleton?
Say when it comes down to it, both
You cut out
timelines
really quickly. Hold
kind
on.
of reference, not necessarily like, let's say,
Hold on. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I cannot hear you. You like cut out
Check, check,
midway.
check. Hold on. Let's see.
I'm gonna check real quick if my daughter's AirPods connected because we know that happens.
How about now?
Yes. Okay. All right. Sorry. Continue. So,
You can
question.
hear me before, right?
Claw. Huh?
You can hear me before.
I heard you just fine, and then as soon as you were starting to kind of explain or answer my question, it cut off.
Got you. Okay. So say when it comes down to let's say for example X Men Apocalypse. That movie, that was the final, let's say, point to where we see Wolverine escape Alkaline Lake. And say from there, it says like the movie is based in 1982. So with that being said, and then flipping it over to Claw, the only reference we got was T'Challa in his meeting saying that they've been chasing Claw for 30 years, and Black Panther was set in 2018. So for 30 years, I would put it around 1988. So if anything, I put the 80s for both of them, but I didn't really get too specific just because we don't know for sure.
Okay. I mean, it's close enough in proximity that we can say possibly like you know the especially because Claus is not a great
Mm-hmm.
guy. It would so make sense that he's in the circle with someone like Strucker,
Mm-hmm.
and so I feel like we could maybe assume that's the breach that led to the adamantium.
Well, yeah, like
Uh,
I like that just because, like, say if anything, that's why I kind of put it as a question in terms of how Claw rose to power, you know, and if it was something as I don't want to say as simple, but something as simple as him stealing the adamantium and then selling it to the highest bidder just to become something. I can imagine that Stryker becoming one of those potential buyers for his Weapon X program.
Oh yeah, like I feel like that's so plausible. And obviously this is all
Right.
speculation, but I feel like the timeline is close enough that we can kind of assume that. And it would so make sense that these two people would be in like the circle together
Mm-hmm.
just because of kind of what they do as a profession.
Right.
Um and so yeah, like I really like that theory and I'm kind of leaning on it. And obviously as we get more things and more Easter eggs, we can kind of start to piece things even further
Yeah.
together. And obviously we haven't gotten Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but from the events of the holiday special, we know that they're based in nowhere. And who knows, maybe there's still random scraps of the collector where I feel like is a great place to get Easter eggs. So I'm just kind of like thinking back and forth. But yeah, I'm excited that we're laying this out. We're kind of like pioneers in this conversation.
Right. Like, I just kind of ended the timeline just posing the question if we're ever in the MCU going to get that vibranium versus adamantium conversation, because as of right now, like I mentioned, there's currently three heroes that use vibranium, and yet we haven't, of course, gotten Wolverine or any other Weapon X mutants that also have vibranium or whatnot, but not vibranium, but adamantium. But I would love to see that, just because so far it's been theory. It's been a whole lot of speculation on the internet. So if it's just something that could do us like a fan service, I feel like Feige. This is a Feige moment, yo Feige. If you could be so kind, I know I'm asking a little early. We're gonna get mutants a little later on, but if we could, when you do decide to introduce it, can we get like a standoff, please? Like a vibranium adamantium standoff? That's all I'm asking, please.
See, we know Wolverine's going to be in Deadpool, but it's not been confirmed if he's going to be in any other films. So that's where I'm like curious, but I would love to see because in the comics, adamantium is said to be stronger than
Mm-hmm.
vibranium alone, and so I'm assuming that if say Wolverine, attempts to like slash at like Bucky who has the vibranium arm, like I feel like that would mean physics that it would cut through,
But you want to know something interesting that I read? Honestly, I read it this week. When it comes down to it, like say that would be the situation, quote unquote, if it were vibranium. I mean, adamantium versus the vibranium that we know of in Wakanda. But they're saying that the interwebs are saying that raw vibranium is much stronger than the regular vibranium that we know of. So we know that the Telecons have that raw vibranium. So I wonder if we can get like a Wolverine Namor standoff and see see where that goes. You
Okay,
know?
so it seems like in theory, raw vibranium, adamantium, vibranium,
Mm-hmm.
like refined vibranium. It seems like that is like the the um the hierarchy when it comes to these
Yeah.
metals. As of well, from what we know, and then of course above all of that, it seems to be like Thanos's like blade,
Mm-hmm.
which I really wish I knew what it was.
It could have
But
just
yeah,
been sharp. That's it.
no, it's like that's not how it works. It's not how it works. Like that thing
Oh man.
sliced the shield in half clean. Like I want to know like what metal that is. But yeah. So this is yeah. I think that's. I'm excited. Like I feel like we birthed a lot of questions when we brought this conversation
Yeah.
up. But I'd love to see. And who else has adamantium? Originally, Vision's body, I believe, was built of adamantium. Obviously, because of rights, etc., they changed it in the MCU to be vibranium. But who else has adamantium apart from Wolverine
In the comics or in the movies?
in the comics,
Okay.
or even both?
In the movies, we have the OG Deadpool, that original Deadpool beheaded at the in the end credits. He had adamantium swords coming out of his arms,
Mm.
and Wolverine's quote unquote clone daughter has adamantium claws as well.
Okay. Okay. So we have a couple kind of a couple winners. I haven't read the articles, but I've seen a couple things pop up with like Wolverine's daughter from Logan, but I haven't read too much. And obviously that's way ahead in time, like timeline wise, that's Apocalypse. That's like yeah, that's nowhere near where we're at, but I did see a couple of things, but I'm not too sure what that was in regards to. Because we don't know what happened at the very end of Logan. Like obviously we see them like run past like, the hills into Canada
Mm-hmm.
where they expect to have like a sanctuary for mutants,
Right.
but we don't really know what ends up happening. I would love to see a continuation of that just because like the kids I think were so
Yeah.
well like casted. It was just good.
Um, and I think the only other thing in the comics that I know of, I think that you told me. I think you told me. Ultron was originally made from adamantium, right?
That's
Okay.
correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's all I. That's all I know.
That's
That's
it.
it.
That's it. Okay, we're ready for Guardians of the Galaxy talk.
Sure. Let's go for it.
I I threw on my like Disney little lanyard with the Guardians on it just for fun. Oh, are you aware of how these things work at like
No.
Disneyland? Okay, so this is like the starter pack. I got the Guardians of the Galaxy starter pack, but basically, if you see you'll see like the workers with these, and they have like a plethora of collected like pins, but if you see a worker with a pin that you want
Mm-hmm.
and you tell them, hey, I want to trade you this pin for that pin, they have to do
Oh
it.
wow.
They have to do it. It's like the law. Literally, like it's the rules are behind like this little card that like comes with the lanyard. So I learned that when I was there and I thought that was so cool. I just wanted this because I wanted it, but I was so scared because I thought like, and I had asked down the road, and so like my anxiety went down. But I thought that was true for everyone. So it was like, please, no one asked for my Gamora
Oh
pin. Like I
man.
thought like it was like a cultural thing in Disney that you have to do it, but no, it's just the workers.
Right. But that would be funny if like somebody came up to ask, like, say if it came down to it and you didn't know the actual rules. What are you doing? What are you gonna do? You gonna scrap for it?
Oh, I'm gonna scrap. Like, if someone asks for my Gamora pin, I'll be a dick. I'll be like, hey, no, I'm sorry.
Man. Okay, interesting. I haven't seen that side of Grace yet. I've only seen, the nice, comic book knowing Grace. So,
You don't want to know her. She stays deep, deep in my subconscious for a
okay.
reason.
All
We
right.
keep her there.
I noted not touching not touching that side. I'm good. I'm all right. We're getting off. Let's go into the special first before the trailer.
Yes, I think that's
Okay.
perfect. I'm just getting my notes out. Okay, ready to go.
Okay, go for it. Start it off.
Okay, so holiday special intro credits. I love for us to like start here just because I think I don't know, it was I think a very big treat. Obviously we enter with the special logo that we saw also in the what was it called? Was it Werewolf
Yeah, Werewolf by
by Night?
Night. Yeah.
Werewolf by
Mm-hmm.
Night. So same special intro, and then it kind of blends into the there was like a Christmas comic book panel, and like the panels with like these Christmas themes are from actual comics. So if you look at each little panel, all of them come from like particular comic books that just happen to have a holiday
Wow.
theme. And then from there we get like an updated Marvel logo. We see Kamal Khan, She Hulk, and the most recent addition being Shuri from obviously the recently released Wakanda Forever. So, starting there, lots of really cool Easter eggs with that.
Stop right there.
I think,
So,
go ahead.
with that intro, do you think it's ever going to get to a point to where they can't fit in any more new characters?
I feel like they can do it. If Groot can make a diorama of Kraglin holding the diorama of Kraglin holding the diorama of Kraglin holding the diorama. I think that Marvel can squeeze in as many heroes as they want.
Okay. Just curious because, like, I was wondering if Shuri was going to make it because it came down towards the end. I was like, I don't know. And then, split second, there she is, like, so I was like, all right. It's going to get to the point, like, whoever's next, I don't know.
Where are you
Yeah,
gonna fit?
they may cut out some OGs. just to make more room for the new one. So I was just wondering, what do you think?
Maybe, or they'll make it longer.
Okay.
Like, I think one of the two. I feel like they can do it. I really don't see them having to like scrap up like the originals. I feel like that'd be really sad. But something, they're really good at like updating these like logos, because like I don't know, like Black Panther just came out, but it's like I'm just very impressed at how up to date they are. Like, they're really quick just to update it right from like the get go, as soon as like projects
Yeah.
land.
Yeah.
So from here, we see our Guardians in Nowhere. We find out that they actually bought Nowhere from the Collector, which confirms that the Collector did survive his confrontation with Thanos back in Infinity War. And it's become the home of the Guardians. Kraglin, which is kind of like the only Ravager in their squadron at this point, since most of them were killed up in Volume 2. We get to see our first like real introduction to Cosmo the Space Dog, which is based off the Russian space dog that, let's just pretend this is exactly where it ended up.
Okay.
But yeah, this is, I mean, I think it's such a great place to kind of set this foundation, because we saw this in volume, what was it, volume 1?
Nowhere.
Yes, that's where we first got Nowhere. Yeah, volume 1 is where we first got Nowhere. So it's kind of cool to see that this is going to be the backdrop to, I'm assuming, also like volume 3.
Let me just say there is just a little bit of confusion on my part, just because of, I guess, the gap that hasn't been filled, because just from the last time we saw Nowhere was like in shambles. Like uh Thanos, he kind of just, like, once he took away the illusion, you can see it was pretty much, I don't want to say desolated, but it was in bad shape. And just to, I don't know, maybe just to assume that the collector is still alive. I think that's I don't want to say it's a reach, but it's hard to say. I can say, I would guess the Guardians maybe bought it, being that the collector was the last owner of it. They bought it and maybe like brought it back to life from Thanos. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel about just the current. Like, I think it's cool that it's set here, and I really enjoyed this story and what they ended up doing in terms of decorating it for Christmas. I'm just a little confused as far as from this point and all the events of Infinity War.
Well, it's a lot of time, right? It's a lot of time. And the last time that we did see Nowhere, you're right. Like, honestly, it was like decimated, like demolished. And so, I mean, I can believe that in the 5 years, obviously we haven't seen it, but like in the 5 years, slowly but surely, like things were mended enough for people to like be living there. And I think like the piece that we see with Thanos, keep in mind that is inside the Collector's, I'm gonna call it, warehouse. So we don't know like the full impact to Nowhere as like a planet, you know what I mean? So maybe like the rest of Nowhere wasn't as like destroyed as like the like warehouse of the
Okay.
Collector. And so I believe that in 5 years it was enough time for it to kind of get fixed up, being that the Guardians, the majority of them, apart from Rocket and Nebula, were gone for 5 years. They've just come back
Mm-hmm.
and they just bought it, and they say it's from the Collector. I'm assuming that's more so recent. And so then it does make sense to assume that the Collector is alive. Like, he must have escaped at some point, because the Collector that we do see in Infinity War was just like an
Right.
illusion from Thanos. So I feel like it is safe to say that the Collector is still alive. Question is like, where is he? And I'm wondering if he's with his brother,
Right.
and
I forgot the name of the place,
I
but
know
he's with
you
Jeff
guys know
Goldblum. That's the
Thor,
name.
Thor Ragnarok. I can't remember the planet at all, but yes. So it's lots of questions for sure. Like, where is he? Are we gonna see him again? Is he gonna have like a plot line? But I think it's cool that they bought it, and also especially because like Nowhere is like the site of a lot of like resources that have a lot of value in like the black market. So I feel like this is such a great like real estate for the Guardians, and it makes sense why and how they were able to afford their uniforms in the trailer. You know, they got the funds now.
And now that I think about it, I think when it comes down to nowhere, nowhere is, and no matter what movie, whether if it's Infinity War, Guardians, or even Thor: The Dark World, nowhere is a place that proves that Celestials are connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just throwing it out there, based after Eternals, and we have no idea how Eternals is related. Nowhere is really the only evidence that we have Celestials in 616. Just saying.
I mean, we saw it in Eternals. Eternals is canon for 616. I know
Nah,
we like to kind
nah,
of keep it
I don't
aside,
like
but it
it.
is.
Nah.
And then, well, like, I mean, the celestial head, like, we've known this is the separate head of a celestial since volume
Right.
one. So it is like one of the earlier mentions of a celestial. They've mentioned it in the lore behind the stone, specifically one of the celestials who wielded the power stone.
Mm-hmm.
And then also we had in Thor, Love and Thunder, in this pocket dimension where the gods live, we saw several celestials kind of guarding like the
Yep.
entrance. So we have sprinkles of, but you're correct. We still don't have any more connections from like the main plot of Eternals, which is so annoying because Eternals was such a world destroying like movie and there's no more mention of it or any, you know what I mean? Like it's, yeah. So
Don't mind. Listen,
valid.
Grace. Don't mind me. I'm really just gonna continue to throw shade on the Eternals until we get that connection. Okay.
Hey,
So,
I know.
no
This
matter
isn't new to
what,
me.
it's just gonna keep coming.
No, yeah, so like I'm really excited about this backdrop being in nowhere for the holiday special. I feel like this is gonna be true for volume three. I'm assuming this is gonna be somewhat of the backdrop as well. And it's also so cool to see the people of nowhere like really love the Guardians. You know what I mean? Like there's so much adoration. Like they seek their acceptance. You see this a lot with like the band that's like singing the strange song of Christmas
Mm-hmm.
from like the perspective of Rocket and Kraglin and all of
Mm-hmm.
them. And so I'm obsessed with this. And we get, let me see. Real quick, because I made the mistake in our post. I posted something about how in the volume three trailer, they're donning these really comic book accurate matching like
Mm-hmm.
suits. And I said that they're emerging from the Milano. I am actually not correct. The Milano is the spaceship that Quill had in volume one. However, the new spaceship they have is called the Bowie, named after Dave Bowie.
Interesting.
Fun fact. So I gotta update that on the gram.
Cause that was a ship in here and in this trailer, which looked pretty monstrous in comparison to the Ravager ships that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and honestly, like the Guardians ship, like Quills has never been huge. Like you can see that when it's compared to, like you said, the Ravagers. Obviously, like the ship that not Thanos, what's his name?
Ronan.
The blue guy from the first
Ronan.
film. Ronan, yeah. So this one definitely looks substantially larger. But the team has grown. Like Nebula's on the team now. Mantis, it's like they need room, you know, like extra rooms for these these people.
One extra room just because just in this special there's no Gamora. So really we just needed one room to fill. So I guess what they needed a whole brand new huger or bigger ship.
Oh, well, you know what? Keep in mind, like Thor was living with these guys for quite some time,
Mm.
so there was that as
Oh,
well.
true. That's right.
Yes. And so we get the story that Kraglin tells of how Yondu ruined Christmas, very similar to very Scroogey, very Grinchy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And obviously this isn't the full story. We get a little bit more about it from close perspective towards the end, but this sets basically the theme of what this episode's about, which is Mantis and Drax just trying to give Quill like this wonderful Christmas, spark that spirit up again for him, especially because he's so down about losing Gamora for the second time, you
Right.
know?
Wait, but is it proven or has is it seen like we have no mention of Gamora? We have no idea how he's feeling. Being that I think in this whole special, like yeah, we kind of get we get the story, which honestly, when I read that Peter Gunn, not Peter Gunn's, I'm sorry, what's his gun's name?
It's the Element Guns.
No, first gun. No, the director. I'm talking about
Oh, James Gunn?
James Gunn. I'm
I thought
talking
you were
about him.
talking about Quill's
No, no,
guns
no,
because
no,
you
no.
obviously see where he gets the blasters from.
James Gunn. He actually went back and did research on how to do like some animation that happened in, I don't know, earlier times, 50, 60, 70 or whatnot. And I actually liked that aspect that it wasn't anything current. It did look old school, even though it was still clean or whatnot. And I enjoyed the story. It's just that there was no clear, like, I feel like it wasn't about Gamora here. It was just more so about them trying to save his Christmas. So we didn't really get a feel for him feeling down for Gamora in this special.
No, that's false. They specifically mentioned Gamora and that they're trying to
They
cheer him
did.
up for Gamora.
They did not. We didn't get a feel from him though. We don't know. They're just
We
assuming. You
don't
know
get
what
a
I'm
feel
saying?
from him, but we get a feel from Mantis and Drax, and we can assume that this is true.
Okay.
And obviously, we're going to see Gamora come back in Volume 3. And also, it's like, it hasn't, also, like, from Comic Con San Diego 2022, we have them talk about how what sets the stage for the events in Volume 3 come from Quill's kind of lack of initiative due to how he's still healing from losing Gamora. So this is very much still a theme. And they do mention in this episode specifically, like, that is what they're trying to do. Of course, spark Christmas back in his life because they just heard this story from Kraglin, but Gamora is very much mentioned in this.
Okay. I'm gonna watch it again, and we're gonna see.
Yes, you will. I'll send you the minutes. Don't you worry.
Yep.
Don't you
Send
worry.
it.
But along with this, we also find out that another reason that specifically Mantis is so dedicated to wanting to give this to Quill is that she is Quill's half sister. Her father biologically is Ego, the planet.
Right. Well, he was out here having babies, like it was nothing going to, and it was. This is for however long that he was in some type of human form. So I'm sure they have some other brothers and sisters out there, aunts and uncles or whatnot, or not aunts and uncles, but even older brothers and sisters out there that, of course, that we just have yet to meet or will probably never meet. But it's kind of cool that they made her his sister, just so by the end of it, like, I kind of like the whole. It's like he said that she was the best Christmas gift or whatnot. Then
Oh,
that kind of pulled on the heartstrings. They still know how to do that. You know what I'm saying? So
hashtag heartstrings.
yep. Hashtag boom boom. And yeah, where were we? We were so her and Drax are plotting.
Yeah. Oh,
And
real quick before we move on, just kind of talking about like Mantis and the whole like her being Ego's daughter and Quill's half sister. Like I'm thinking back to Volume 2 when she talks about how she found Ego. She says that like Ego found her in the larva state,
mm-hmm.
and kept her around because she helps him sleep. Obviously, Ego's like main reason for procreating is he was trying to find someone who had the celestial gene just like him to help him on his mission of basically just spreading the seed on all the planets.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes sense because if anything, like Ego, you know, collecting all of his offspring, although Mantis didn't have that celestial gene, she still had something that was beneficial to him. So it actually does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Continue, please.
Okay, so we get this awesome scene where you get this like band that is trying to get get validation from Quill because they're like, we just learned about Christmas. We heard it from like, I'm gonna get this wrong, but it was like we heard it from Cosmo, who heard it from Rocket, who heard it from Kraglin, and so it's like this is like they're getting the information from like fifth sources. You know what I mean? And so when they're starting off the song, some of it lands and some of it doesn't,
Right.
but it makes sense because you can kind of see how things were interpreted from the sources, specifically Drax, because you get the whole like, Mrs. Claus on the pole, Santa Claus is a thief, because you can tell, like, I mean, these guys are like Ravagers are thieves, so if anything, like, yeah, Santa Claus is a boss.
Well, like say with the story of Santa and this whole song just all together, it's like it gave us a perspective of what it would sound like if we were explaining to somebody who lives off world what Christmas is. I would probably be just as confused. He's like, wait, you're saying there's a man that goes into every home in one night, you know, only in like I think they said in the song like a 4 hour span or something like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's just it's a story that honestly, once they kind of broke it down, it does sound kind of crazy. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I mean, it did its part.
It's what we're indoctrinized here,
Mm-hmm.
as Terrans,
Right, as a norm over here, you know.
as a norm over here on Terra.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Drax and Mantis are trying to decide what to get Quill. And when I heard like this plot line that they're gonna try to get Kevin Bacon for Quill, I was dead. Like Kevin Bacon is mentioned in in like both of the other Guardians. Honestly, anytime we've seen the Guardians, except for
Mm-hmm.
like Thor: Love and Thunder, there's a mention of Kevin Bacon. Like we get it in Infinity War, and Peter Parker kind of like humbles Quill. It's like, oh, like it never was the best movie or something like that. So it's literally the perfect gift. Of course, this falls under like human trafficking, as Peter Quill mentions later in the film,
Right.
but it sets the very entertaining scene for the rest of the episode or special.
Well, let's say, cause first Drax and Mantis, they make it to Earth. Drax forgot to put the cloak on, so it's visible, and all the humans on Earth are just like, oh God, another invasion, you know, striking fear. And then he pressed the button, and then they went invisible. But then, like when they made it to Hollywood, right? It's funny just because you and I we can say we've been to Hollywood. Us living in LA, we know what the Walk of Fame is. The Walk of Fame is a whole bunch of actors in costumes taking pictures, charging for pictures. And like the first time I moved out here, I went out there and then someone asked me, "Let's get a picture." And I was like, "Oh, whatever." And then they were like, "Okay, cool, $20." I'm like, I didn't want this picture in the first place, you know. So
That's how they do it.
it's like a whole bunch of people out there are low key
Welcome to
scammers, are
Hollywood.
scammers in Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? But like you seeing Drax and Mantis on Hollywood Boulevard in that scene, in that atmosphere, you know, you just think it's just somebody dressed up. You know, it's like the norm. You know.
Yeah, so it's like people are coming up to them like wanting pictures and they're giving them money and they end up with quite a good amount of money. They end up going to a bar, they get drunk, they get the time of their lives, and then they
Mm-hmm.
remember like, oh yes, we're trying to find Kevin Bacon. And luckily there's a shop owner, and like it's part of the Hollywood experience. You get the map.
Mm-hmm.
The map tells you where all these stars live, which is creepy as hell. I don't know if it's
Right.
accurate. I've never actually bought one, but I've seen it. And Mantis uses her powers to convince the shop owner just to give them the thing because they used all their money on drinks.
Right. And just when it comes down to how they got their money and what they were doing with it, like it's just how she's carrying it. I'm just like, you're carrying around just wads of cash, just like this, and especially in Hollywood or something like that. I don't know, that sketch maybe like a cause for a robbery, and I feel like if they even showed that in the special, that could have been a funny scene. You know, just if somebody tried to rob them and then just Drax
Drax.
pummels them or
Yeah.
something like that. You know.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And before we move on, like something I think we see a lot, especially as we see Drax and Mantis make their way to Terra, to Earth, is I think you see a lot of development. I think in Mantis as a character because she's no longer as like passive as we saw her in Volume Two. She's a lot more assertive. She has a much stronger voice, especially talking to Drax. Like I think I wouldn't say like the I don't know. It's just she's not as like what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say like submissive, like passive. She's not as passive. She's very assertive. And it's something that we did hear from the actress in Comic Con is that we're going to get to see a different layer of Mantis. You're going to see martial arts, which we did. We get a badass scene down the road while she's fighting off the cops. And you see like anger, you see just so much more. And they're specifically talking about volume 3, but we get a taste for it in the special, which I thought was super cool.
Well, she's an actress that we have yet to see in terms of her physicality, just because I know she is supposed to be in the new Mission Impossible, which I think got pushed back into like forever. So we'll never we'll never know when that's coming out. But she's in it, and an opportunity like that is for any actor, of course, is going to be doing something martial arts wise, something physical, something crazy, because Tom Cruise is 60 years old and he's still trying to run a 5 minute mile, in these movies. So say when it comes down to her, this is like, even though we're getting what we get from like the cop scene here, and we haven't really seen much of her before that. I think it's her time to shine, especially her being a part of this team, and this team is about if they're the quote unquote guardians of the galaxy, she can't just be the one person on the team being passive and quiet. She has to participate. She got to do whatever she can, and we see some of that physicality going up against each one of these cops, where she's like doing a move and then sleep, another move, sleep. It's just like it's about time that she gets out here and shows us some stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And I love it so much. And I feel like, it really showcases how the time with the Guardians has really transformed her. And it makes sense because prior to that, she was a servant for Ego. She was obedient. She followed what he said. And so it's really nice to see her blossom and kind of come into her own as an independent person versus being someone who just served, her father.
Was she on Titan when Thanos snaps?
Uh, yeah. Yes, because she put Thanos to sleep before Peter effed it up
Okay.
and started punching him because he found out Gamora died.
So she got snapped away as well.
Yeah, they all the Guardians minus
Nebula.
Nebula, yeah, and Rocket got snapped away.
Okay. Um, what else? All right, so we kind of skipped. We went to the police, but let's rewind, bringing it back to they left the bar and they finally made their way to Kevin Bacon's house. And initially, of course, they ring the doorbell, and I'm sure Kevin Bacon, as an actor for real, would have looked at the doorbell camera and been like, "Yeah, nah, please go away before I call the cops." And them not being wary of of Earth or whatnot. Of course, they're gonna hop the wall. Drax made it look easy after he threw her over. I thought that was pretty funny. And what else? They just walk up to the door, stroll up to the door, and just bang on the doorbell until not even on the doorbell. They were like banging on the door, right? Just yelling his name.
Yeah, they have like no filter in any sense of like the word. And one thing I think that I thought was really interesting is seeing Kevin Bacon and his initial reaction, which is very mild, because the first thing he sees on the intercom is Mantis's like ginormous eyes, and then he sees Drax. And I think it really shows what we also see in She-Hulk, and kind of like the way that these different species have kind of like integrated in society, where that's not something that's like, oh my God, what is this? It's just standard now on Earth. And it's, I mean, all of it is funny. I feel like the Mantis and Drax back and forth was hilarious in Volume 2. So it's so nice to just see them get like the spotlight.
They had some
And
back and forth in Volume 2 that I don't remember.
dude, they had so much back and forth with Drax being like, why would Ego keep such a hideous creature? I'm hideous? Like, oh, you're grotesque, and it's just like you're a pet. Like they had so much back and forth. Like I remember like at the end when like Mantis is seeing the fireworks and she's like, wow, it's beautiful. And Drax like looks at her very lovingly and he's like, yeah, like you
Mm-hmm.
on the inside. Like it's just the back and forth was amazing.
Gotcha.
So it's so cool to get it here in like such a saturated form. And I love the banter about like the Christmas decorations because Drax really wants this like I think it was an
Right.
elf,
It was just
right?
like a yard decoration, like elf.
Yeah, and like the candy cane from Mantis, and he was just like he was so obsessed with this piece of item that he was prepared to let Kevin Bacon go just to go back into the house and get it. You know?
Yeah, and just their whole argument, yeah, back and forth. It got to the point to where we did get a glimpse of her being angry. She's like, "No," or something like that, and it was new just because yeah we haven't seen her like that, so she got scary for a moment.
It's great. Like I love seeing these new layers of Mantis. It's great, and I love that this is just a little taste because we're gonna see so much more of it in Volume 3, like with the hand to hand combat and stuff like that as well. And so I'm really happy with that. And I think it's so funny once they do make it onto the spaceship because of course they um mind control Kevin
Mm-hmm.
Bacon to come with them willingly, and then they find out the truth, which is that Kevin Bacon is an actor, and all of these stories that Quill has told them weren't real.
Right.
And it's very interesting because when we first see it in Volume 1, and Peter is having the conversation with Gamora about Kevin Bacon and how he saved like this whole town because of dancing and the sticks up the butt and stuff like that. I really thought he was telling them this story knowing it was a movie but just sharing it in that sense of as if it really happened. But we find out that no, like I think Peter just has like a very, because he was so young, he didn't
No,
know, you know what I
no,
mean?
I can't say that just because at the end of the day, the him and him and Peter Parker's conversation, if him saying, "Oh, is it still the greatest movie of all time?" He understands that it's a
Oh,
movie.
that's right, I completely forgot that.
So he knows it's a
Completely
movie. He
forgot.
knows that Kevin Bacon was acting basically, and
Well,
then
okay,
Drax.
he knew it was a movie, but like I wonder if he thought it was like a nonfiction. But I feel like he says like actor as well. So if anything, Mantis and Drax has wrong. Like they've misinterpreted
You
it, and
know,
it's like they've been present for these conversations
yeah,
too.
yeah, they've been present, but you, of all people, know or should know that Drax is the most literal person. He'll take anything and everything and believe it to be true, whether if it's sarcastic or something else, you know. So, him hearing these stories of Kevin Bacon's because they broke down multiple movies to Kevin Bacon, so they've heard these stories which Peter has explained to them. So Peter knows Kevin Bacon is an actor, you know. So they probably took it a little bit more literal in thinking that Kevin Bacon was actually a person on Earth doing all of these, saving a town with dance and doing something else, you know?
This makes so much sense. Like Drax, of course, but even Mantis, because she hasn't had a lot of life experience outside of the Guardians.
Mm-hmm.
She was on a planet with Ego the whole time. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
I'll take
Yep.
it. But it's like I think it's funny because obviously at this point they know what actors are. And so they're so disgusted by the fact that Kevin Bacon's an actor. And I think it's funny because, and I think this is also a piece of like how you see Mantis almost build her personality and how she kind of pulls things from different members of like the Guardians, which is kind of what a child does with parents. But you learn behaviors and there's certain mannerisms that you kind of adopt with the people around
Mm-hmm.
you, because she's like doing the gaggy thing that Drax did a lot in Volume 2, like "you're hideous," like oh my, and he starts gagging. He's like, "I'm thinking of how, like with you, like you and me being intimate." And he starts like gagging again, like so. I just think it's really funny because she does it, and I feel like I see it in that way, which is
Gotcha.
cool.
Yeah, just them being silly, but for them at the same time, it's just like I guess that's how they really feel about actors wherever they're from. Whether I don't know if it's and when it comes to Drax, I don't even know if it's just him. That's just if it's a race of literal beings to where
Mm-hmm.
or so all of them are like that. So I can understand to where acting is super fake to them and they don't really like actors like that. But just I guess
Yeah.
kind of her Mantis kind of being alongside Drax and not really knowing actors like that, and probably just I don't know seeing something. I don't know. We don't even know if she's even seen just actors just in general. So I think if anything, she could just be mimicking how Drax feels. I don't know. I don't know.
Or not even that, like, also, like, think of it from her perspective. Like, she even says it, like, the concept of someone pretending to be someone else is just so creepy to me, you know, because it's not something that she grew up with,
Right.
you know. So I think it's true from her perspective as well, and like the way that you explain Drax is, I think, is so true. So I feel like that just makes sense of like that whole little banter between them all. And then I love how Mantis is like, I want you to pretend like you're a hero and not the disgusting actor that you are,
Right.
just to set like the package for when they introduce him to Quill, you
Yeah.
know.
And when they do that, when she does that mind control, does he goes into a different, it's a different accent, right?
Yeah, because I think he ends up becoming like a British soldier on like Normandy Beach or
Yeah.
something like that. And you know, and then she's like, "No, like I want you to be Kevin Bacon, like the actor who saved like a town from dance and all these things, you know."
Mm-hmm.
And I think from here is where we get them back on
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere, and they start to present this gift to Quill. And honestly, this is such a beautiful like visual, you know, like the way they light everything up. It really feels like it looked like, it feels like Whoville in the Grinch, because the buildings are obviously very different than say the way that ones we would have here, just mildly, like the architecture is very
Yeah.
particular. And that's true when it comes to things like Whoville, right? They have a very unique architecture, and then you add that like the lights on top of it. So I feel like it just gives that vibe. They have fake snow, and everything is so warm and wholesome, leading into them presenting like the present, you know.
And it's like a present, of course. I don't know if they have pets out there, but you put like something living in a box. Of course, you're supposed to put holes in it, but they don't. So they're freaking out. Well, first they present the present, and then Quill's walking up just super excited, and you can see by the smile of his face he's excited. But then, as Kevin Bacon begins to panic, you can just slowly see that smile just slowly fade away on Quill's face, and I thought that to be kind of funny too.
Oh yeah, because he realizes there's a human in there,
Mm-hmm.
and so before he even figures out it's Kevin Bacon, they're like, "Oh no, these freaking idiots! Like
Right.
they did something wrong." Funny story though. So when I was like young, I had to be like under 5. I'm gonna say I was like 3. My family put me in a box, and they gave me a juice box. They stabbed little holes, and I was gonna be my present for my mom. And I remember they like wrapped me, and I thought it was like the most fun thing in the world. And I was having so much fun. I was in there for who knows how long, but I had a juice box. I was fine. But it's just, yeah. If there's holes in the box, it's not too bad. But they forgot the holes, so that's a big deal.
Okay, I thought the story was going into like your mom
I
forgot
died.
you ruined the box, or somebody forgot and you'd stayed in overnight or something like that. Who knows? I don't know.
No, just very
Okay, okay,
simple. Just very
okay,
simple.
cool. All right.
I've been there.
I was I was curious.
I just
I was
remember being
waiting.
like
I
a
was just
poor.
like, get to the good part.
No, that was the good part. It's just a core memory for me. It was
Ah,
just a really cool experience.
gotcha,
But
gotcha, gotcha.
what was I gonna say? Yeah, so like once Kevin Bacon comes out, like Quill already knows, like there's no way you're that cool about the situation. Like, Mantis, did you use your powers on him? And so then once the powers go away, Kevin Bacon just freaks out. And you know, like Quill tells him, like, hey, we're gonna get you home, we're gonna take you on the ship, I'm gonna let you go, don't run away. That's the first thing he does.
Yeah, but that's the first thing anybody's gonna do. It's like I have no idea where I am. I don't know how I got here. I was in a trance. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna run, even though like I could honestly probably still think I'm on Earth still, somewhere, and I just happen to wake up in this strange place of like, wait, where am I? So yeah,
Sure.
I think it's understandable for him to freak out and then just run. You know what I'm saying? Especially first off, I just came from Earth and now I'm coming back. I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of random species. I don't know. I'm out.
I'm out. Yeah, and I do love like Kraglin is really like the thing that turns things around because he's ready to take Kevin Bacon back to Earth on the Bowie, and while they're kind of getting set up to head out, he tells him just kind of what Kevin Bacon means to Peter, because really, like, I love the way he explains it. Like, you taught him how to be a hero. Like, he genuinely saved a planet, like the universe, through dance. We saw that in volume 1. And so I think it really opens Kevin's eyes to like, like this makes sense why they kidnapped me. And he calls his wife, who is actually played by his wife, by the way. And he's like, I'm gonna be a little late. I'm gonna be a little late. He goes back, gives him a wonderful concert, and it's just beautiful.
Well, wait, we heard his wife's voice.
Yes, because we heard it a couple times. We heard it when he's at the house and she's like, "Oh, we're gonna be on our way." And then when he answers the phone on the Bowie to tell her, like, "Hey, would you be upset if I'm a little late?" Because he's like, "You know what? I'm gonna stay and serve my part as a present. I'm gonna follow through." And it's actually his wife who's on the phone.
Is he? Wait. Well, is that Kira Sedgwick? Is that his wife? Do you know?
Is that? I think the name sounds about right.
I'm guessing. I know the face. I know because I've seen her on TV and I know I've seen her shows as well. I just can't place a name. I think it is Kira Cedric, but that's cool that they actually got her to play a little part to play herself. You know what I'm saying? Because he's
Yeah,
playing himself, of course. So himself, I mean. So why not? Why not put his real wife in there too?
absolutely, absolutely. And here, like while the concert's going on, like we get a little moment with Peter and Mantis, and Mantis tells him like, "Hey, like I'm your sister," and it's just so sweet. Like you mentioned it earlier, like he's so happy and he's so genuinely he's like, "That's honestly the best gift I can ever have," and I love that for both of them, but I also love that for Mantis because I think it's like you know when you look at her story and her like life, it's like she's only just recently met this family of misfits and she meets like her actual brother, and so it's really nice. Like I think this really sets such a great stage for Mantis's story. And obviously, like we'll talk about this as we get into volume 3 trailer, but we know that the Guardians by the end of the film are not going to be the same. We can presume we're going to have multiple deaths in volume 3. And I don't know. I feel like we're getting this lovey-dovey thing because Peter's gonna die and Mantis is gonna continue. This is my feelings and I'm sad about it, but I'm voicing them now.
Wow. So you're already putting it out there that Peter is the person that's gonna be out of here.
I don't know. Well, this is the thing. It's like, okay, first of all, like they use this as an opportunity to like bring these characters to the forefront of the story, Mantis and Drax. Um, I feel like I don't know. Like I feel like Mantis is gonna stay. Like I really do. But therefore like I feel like these stakes that they're kind of setting, like with her and Drax and her and Quill, like I really feel okay. Drax, I'm so convinced is gonna die. I really feel like Peter's gonna die. But we'll get into a little bit more when we get into the trailer because there's a lot of little tidbits. But yeah, I think my mind is like, I know things are gonna go horrible in volume 3, so I'm like preparing myself mentally. If everyone in my mind dies, I'll be happy for the ones who live. You know what I mean?
Okay. Uh, I guess you're sounding like Mary Jane for a moment. Not Mary Jane, MJ.
Oh my god. And what was the thing you forgot? You texted me like 2 days
I
later.
forgot the word. I texted to you and then I forgot it right after that because I went back to actually watch it. Let me actually pull it
It's
up.
okay.
Uh,
And you know something? I'm sorry. While you pull it up, I'm gonna go off camera real quick because I realized I didn't connect this into the charger. So hang tight while you look that over.
there it is. Got it. So, oh snap. So I was talking to Grace in terms of how we think Killmonger was acting or as a personality, not even a personality in terms of what he was, and then I was watching Spider-Man No Way Home, and no in there Mary or MJ, she used the word, she used pragmatic, and that's kind of how I classify Killmonger, just because and that's pretty much how he was and everything that he planned out and everything that we've seen him in, from the first Black Panther to the second to What If, and now even in uh, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, he was still kind of using that type of mindset with Shuri. So that was the word I was trying to think of. I couldn't really think of it at the time, but he's kind of more so uh, kind of like a tactician. Everything is precise, and that's what makes him one of the better villains in the MCU. But I'm just going to take this Skype thing off. Hold on. Oh,
No, I'm
okay.
here. Not necessary.
Did you hear everything I said?
Yes, I was able to hear it. I didn't catch the specific word. What was that?
Pragmatic. Mm-hmm.
Yes. No, I think you're accurate. Like I think the way I'm coping is like if I can prepare for everyone's death, I'll be content with I'll be grateful for whoever remains. But um yeah, like I honestly this is such a cute special. We get a little bit of a post credit scene or I guess mid credit scene where they're dressing up Groot. Okay, first of all, Groot is freaking like
He,
yoked.
I mean, we have to think back to the original one before he destroyed his body. He was actually kind of a big guy too, so he was gonna hit his growth spurt in some way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah, like here, I mean, like his father was more of like a slender build, you know what I mean? And this Groot is like buff,
Mm-hmm.
super jacked, you know. So it was just real. I think it's just really funny to see him like this, especially because like the earlier version that we saw or the most recent version, he was still like his teen
Mm-hmm.
years, you know. So he's probably like maybe like in his like I think what would be consistent with like an 18-year-old, you know, like early
Comparison
adolescence,
size,
things
you
like
know,
that.
it makes sense because in that time, you know, us dudes 18, 19, 20, we're trying to get jacked, you know what I'm saying? So
Right. That's right. But the post credit scene has Drax trying to I think it was Drax and Cosmo are like putting lights on Groot because obviously it's like they're hearing Christmas secondhand, so they're just like, okay, we put lights on trees, we got Groot,
mm-hmm.
easy. And obviously Groot moves and messes it all up, but we're left with Rocket saying, looks like we're gonna have to have another holiday special. And so I feel like maybe this is setting up the concept that we're gonna get another one. And I mean, knowing what Volume 3 is going to hold, this following holiday special we know is going to consist of a different mantle of heroes.
We shall see. Um, I like I'm not opposed to how you feel as far as what can go down in the event of Volume 3, but if I were just to choose, because I have no idea, but I would choose honestly if James Gunn, being if this was, let's say, his farewell movie from the Marvel Cinematic Universe before he goes to DC, and if he decides to pull us a Game of Thrones and kill off main characters, fine, go for it. But like, say I wouldn't want that, because if we as a people, if we're gonna get a continuation of the Guardians after this, you know, why not? Um, it's like I get it. Peter Quill, it would hit hard if he died here, but I see him as one of those heroes that let's say keeps the team together after quote unquote less significant death like a Rocket, or we already lost Groot once, but we got Groot back, so I don't think Groot is gonna die again. But let's say uh a Nebula or something like that, you know.
How
I'm
dare
sorry.
you? Well, like, listen, this is known. Like, we know by the end of Volume 3, we are not going to see the same bundle of Guardians ever again. And so it's very, very, very highly suggested by commentary from James Gunn and actors that we are going to get major deaths in this film. And the trailer is consistent with that. We see a lot of little, we get a lot from the trailer. Like, a
The
lot, but
trailer,
not
yeah,
really. Also, we just
trailers
get a
are
lot of
really good
snippets.
trailers. We don't know for sure. We see Peter Quill, you know, in some type of, like, I think I saw like a blood drop, and then we see him kind of like get squeamish or whatnot. But I don't know. I don't want to just say write him off just because of what we saw in that, you know.
No, it's not just because of what we saw in that. I'm saying commentary from James Gunn, commentary from all of the cast, and plus this, it's very consistent. And so we are going to have major characters die. And so, like, or in some way not continue as the Guardians, right? So that can mean many things. Like maybe it's not major deaths, but maybe something happens where the team splits up. But I really don't see them going different ways unless it's a death. And so, like, in my head, it's because people are going to
How
die.
about let's go
Um,
on the other side of the coin. Let's talk about life for a second. How about we talk about love? You know what I'm saying? Can we get like a Peter and Gamora like love send off, you know. So if it's just going to be some major characters and their farewell, let's just give them, you know, the final piece that we've been waiting for since Volume One. Just them finally coming together and finding love, just because we didn't get to see that.
Oh, you know I'm all about that. 1,000%. And we have a scene with Gamora where she's holding like this Polaroid picture, and I feel like this Polaroid might be a picture of either her and Quill, or just like the team, because this Gamora has not had the Guardians experience, which is so sad because that's such a huge and pivotal point in her life, like changes everything, you know? And so she's kind of on her own, I think, just trying to figure it out. And she is said to be leading actually her own band of Ravagers. And so we know that the teams will link up at some point in the film. We do see like the when Quill and Mantis and the whole team emerges from the Bowie, and like they're in their new matching outfits.
Wait. Let me stop you.
Gamora's
Stop
not
right
there
there,
yet.
okay? Because I wanted to start off with, before we dive into the actual breakdown of the trailer. Give me initial reaction.
I mean, I loved it. I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting to just see more of the Guardians, because they're like, when this film releases, it's going to be 6 years to the date. This is one of like the longest awaited films, and it's one of my favorites. And so it was great. Like the nostalgia when it dropped, like I didn't want to watch it on my phone. I wanted to watch it in the living room, lights off, full screen, and I'm excited. We got a lot of snippets of a lot of different things. Nothing cohesive in terms of like solid storyline, which is fine. I'd rather get less in the trailers. They've been giving us way too much in the past, so I'm cool with what we got. Very happy overall.
Okay. Is that it? Great.
Yes.
All
Thoughts on
right.
your end?
I'm not excited. I'm really not. I was.
What?
I'm actually disappointed with this trailer. Low key. Say
Oh my
say say
god. Dude,
say when
hell.
it comes down to. I'm sorry, I dropped my pen. I'm trying to get it. All right. So say when it comes down to everything that we saw. I mean, we're getting I don't want to say the same old Guardians, but we're getting some similar jokes here and there. You know, Drax is still Drax, and this, that, and the third. When it comes down to them and the team, we get uh, a look at Adam Warlock. Was it enough? Not for me, because we hyped it up as this is going to be a super being, and we get only really a clip to where it just maybe looks like he's punching Nebula, and that doesn't really look super to me. It wasn't like a super like introduction for that. And then it gave us more so the sad feel to where I feel like, if anything, we are going to lose somebody. And for me, from this trailer, I think it is Rocket, because of how Rocket's kind of reacting here. So as far as the trailer as a whole, it's cool that they're coming back. Do I want to see more? Sure, but nothing really pulled me in like Bucky and Captain beating up Iron Man, or Thanos like in a trailer, or like there was no real major moment for me here.
And that's fine. That's totally fine. I feel like everyone, like the way that they kind of receive like certain films is going to be different. You know what I mean? And I think like we have very, I wouldn't say opposite like favorites when it comes to like the vibes we like to live in the MCU, because obviously there's such a variety, which I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I hear you. I hear you for sure.
I'm sorry, like say trailers, they give us the Fast and Furious moment. They give us that feel of like, oh, something big and epic is coming, and then something. The only thing that I really saw that was quote unquote big and epic was it looked like a space monster where they're running around in the spacesuits or whatnot, but it was just them running, and there was nothing like chasing them like the monster itself. I don't even know if it's a monster. It just looks like maybe like a human spaceship. I don't know. It just looked super weird, you know? It was nothing that drew me in. I'm sorry.
Hell yeah, it was weird. Okay, let me tell you what I saw. Okay, so me, I see Guardians of the Galaxy re-emerging after many years. Quill says it. It's been a long time, and we've been gone for a very long time, 5 years. Drax and Nebula were the only Guardians that survived the snap. Like, this is huge, and I think you see Nebula and Rocket have much more of a prominent presence when it comes to the team, specifically Nebula. And this is commentary. I forget where I heard this from. I don't know if it was Gunn, or if it was the actress that plays Nebula, but she's going to have a little bit more of an authority on the team. And this is like huge. They appear in comic book accurate suits. Literally squealed when I saw this. And then we see flashes of things that we haven't seen, specifically to Rocket and who he is and what he is, and his story. And like, I'm paraphrasing James Gunn, but like, Rocket is the saddest creature in the galaxy. His story is going to be big, and we see him with who is, I think her name is Lila. Yep, Lila, who is like this otter looking thing, but she's Rocket's soulmate. So I think the snippets that we see are potentially their escape from the scientists that were working on them, and that was maybe the last time they saw each other, and we're probably going to see her come up again. We see the high evolutionary who basically experiments on different species, and in his frame of mind enhances them. When we saw the high evolutionary appear in Comic-Con in San Diego, he we get a snippet of kind of his mentality. He talks about humans, specifically referring to the audiences as like disgusting beings, to kind of set the pace of what he feels about the people he hasn't yet enhanced. And so it's very, very suggested that this is probably where Rocket came from. And then the scientists that he employed are the ones who created who he was. And then we get these snippets where, yes, you see like the blood, and then you see Quill, who is like screaming, sobbing, and you see like this breathing tube next to him. So very suggestive that for sure one major death that we can assume is going to happen. I think it's going to be multiple. We see Gamora, first time since Endgame, which is huge. She is a completely different Gamora than the one that we knew previously. And I'm excited to see like how her experiences since Endgame have kind of changed her, and now her being introduced again to the Guardians. Like, this is huge. So yes, I was very excited. This is my this was my experience with the trailer. And so for me, I was feeling it. A lot of major things that I think excited me. Obviously, we had like the classic vibes that we expect from the Guardians, which I'm just excited to see in a film just for them, beyond just the special, beyond just the cameos that they made in Thor Love and Thunder. So yeah, a lot of major scenes that I was able to pull, and I'm really, really
When
excited
you say
about it.
classic Guardians, honestly, say when it comes down to this trailer versus the original two, right? The original Volume 1 and Volume 2, those still gave us kind of like those 80 music vibes, to where even here, this was the first time we didn't really get that. We didn't get any like 80s music type feel from it, you know?
And based on commentary, that is still going to be the case. I think 80s specifically will still play a huge role. You do see when they're on this planet, that the species on the planet actually have like 80s kind of leaned attire. So the 80s kind of vibe is still going to be part of the story. I think that having it not so present in the trailer in terms of just having the audio maybe was, I think, a approach that was makes sense to me, because yes, this is the Guardians, but this is Guardians after 5 years. Nebula and Rocket have been alive for these 5 years without the team. And knowing where this is going to lead, it's going to be a little different. Like, we're going to see things that I assume are going to really bring out the tears. And I think that things that we saw in San Diego Comic-Con really support that. Like, when I think you said you didn't watch the panel, correct?
No, only saw pictures.
Yeah. And so like on the panel, when you see they go like cast member to cast member, and every single one of them is in tears, every single one of them. And I think it's Sean Gunn who says it, like, the reason we're breaking down here just briefly talking about what this film is going to do is because we care, and this is going to be like big, and we explore the characters in so much more of an emotional level than we have before. It's the finale of this trilogy, you know.
We're gonna see.
We're going to say yes, we will. Yes, we will.
Oh man, I just wish, honestly, just hearing you speaking to it, I wish that I could match your excitement. It's just, I don't know. Right now, this wasn't giving me the vibes I was hoping for.
Hey,
You
that's
know?
okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Everyone has their cup of tea. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not hating. I do want to talk about briefly is because we kind of mentioned it throughout our kind of breakdown of the
Mm-hmm.
special and the trailer, but where are you leaning on like characters that might be going away, whether death or just somehow separating from the team? Like, what would you say are like your top three that you think?
Rockets out of here, and then Peter and Gamora go live love life. They have a little love story somewhere else. They're they're safe.
Dude, I really want it. I want it so bad, especially because we never saw that. Volume two, there was still the unspoken thing. And we got the brief kiss in Infinity War, and that was kind of it. We never really got to see them as a couple, and my heart breaks for that. It's just like, in my head, it's like the scene where he's like yelling at her, I told you to go left. You know, it's just like, it's, yeah, so I'm all about it. I want that to happen. I'm definitely thinking Rocket might be one of the ones to go just from what we saw. Like, this is going to be so Rocket
Mm-hmm.
focused. That, and so I feel like it could possibly be that Groot has died in the past and he's been flipped away. I don't think he's on the chopping block. I feel like he's safe for now. I feel like Nebula's gonna stay, like especially with like the talks of her having a little bit more of an authority figure in the Guardians. Like maybe she's gonna be the new number one if let's just say Quill and Gamora get to have their little honeymoon and just
Mm-hmm.
live their life.
Yeah. Like at the end of the day, no matter what, as far as a Guardian story, I think if anything, every team in every Marvel movie somehow wins. So I feel like the win for Peter Quill would be to end up with Gamora. So if it's not this
I
movie, maybe the next one. I don't know. I just there has to be an end to their love story, and it just can't end with Peter dying, even though like he's done everything to get Gamora back. You know, to even like save Gamora from Thanos, even though by that time he already threw her off her cliff. You know, so we need to see the conclusion to Peter and Gamora either finding each other, and then she realizes that she is actually in love with him, like this version of Gamora is in love with him. And if it's like in the moment to where he saves the world but dies saying it, it's just, I don't know. It's so many possibilities and where the love story can go. It can switch to where we lose Quill, and then you just see Gamora's just left as the heartbroken lover,
I
you know.
know.
But we hope for no one, neither of them to die, and hopefully them finally coming together. And if it's them to leave, then let them leave, because I think Peter or the actor Chris, it's one of the Chris
Crap.
Pratt. um, he's had like what is his volume one, volume two, uh, Infinity War, Endgame, Thor,
Thor.
Christmas special. So this is his seventh MCU film, you know, and I don't know if he signed the same contract as Hemsworth, but initially I think Hemsworth signed maybe like a 7 or 8 picture deal, and then like he's on like a pay as you go type of
Yeah.
situation, you know. So if that's the case, if he's on pay as you go, then he could choose to be out. But if not, he 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 may be on for maybe another movie or two. So who knows? We'll see.
I feel like in terms of people that like I think might be safe or will continue as the Guardians, I feel pretty confident. Mantis, Nebula, Groot, and then Adam Warlock is most likely going to join the Guardians. He's been a member of the Guardians in like the comics. Actually, a lot of people have been part of the Guardians. And actually, the funny thing is, one of the original team up of the Guardians have almost none of the ones that we know
Mm-hmm.
here it's like Yondu and a lot of like the characters that were introduced as part of the Ravagers. I think it's Sylvester Stallone's character is part of the original Guardians. And so there's like a plethora of places we can pick from to kind of create this new team. But of the ones we have present, I think like Mantis, Nebula, Groot are safe. Everyone else, it's TBD. You know?
Yeah, Nebula. I mean, we can say she's safe, but like the fact that you brought up that she was the only one that didn't get snapped away, I don't know. That could be some leeway to the unsafe. You know, whoever didn't get snapped, it's time.
It's time.
Yeah.
Another thing also that I wanted to bring up. So, we see that they're approaching this planet. It's not
Mm-hmm.
Earth, and I've been kind of digging to see what it could possibly be, being that this is going to showcase a lot of Rocket's origins. I've seen some people wonder if it was actually going to be Half World, which is where he's from. In volume one, when you have like that prisoner summary on the screen when they're kind of like getting uh
Yeah. Like the background.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
written into whatever they do, like you see that his like home planet is
Okay.
Half World. And so it's just something I saw and I just wanted to kind of bring it up. But um yeah, lots of things that excited me about this trailer, and I feel like I'm just excited. When the release, I believe, is going to be May 5th of 2023, so I got a little bit before it comes out, but I'm
Okay.
excited.
I need to. I just need to see more. That's it. That's it. Again, I'm not hating on the movie. I'm just. I'm just. I need more. I
That's
need
all
a
right.
moment. Like say right now, in terms of trailers that are out right now, Ant Man he gave us Kang, and that was the moment. You know what I'm saying? So say with Guardians, I needed something like that.
That's fair. Totally fair. And obviously, this is trailer one. Let's see what the trailers like as they roll out what it gives us. But in terms of like the first one, I'm very content with it. I'm happy they didn't give us a lot, just because I think the downfall that a lot of films have been doing is they've been giving us too much. So I'm okay with them leaning on the side of less.
Okay.
I'm cool with that.
Okay. And that's not bad because it leaves the movie a more surprises and b like just like we've had the conversation with She-Hulk and Doctor Strange and them giving us too many of the cameos that were supposed I don't want to even say supposed to be secrets, but like they just gave it all in the trailer. So uh they I feel like this trailer it didn't give me too much and that could honestly be a good thing, you know. So um, that just leaves us for a little bit more excitement, a little bit more anticipation, a little bit more surprise when we actually see the movie.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I think that's everything I have when it comes to the special, when it comes to the trailer. One thing we did mention about the film is like the part where at the very end, or I'm sorry, the special is the part at the very end where everyone's kind of giving them their gifts. Of course, we briefly talked about Rocket getting Bucky's arm from Nebula finally. And it's the same one we saw in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I'm very intrigued to hear the story of how Nebula got it.
Right.
That's the
Mm-hmm.
question. Any thoughts
I
there?
have no idea because as of right now, if we were to assume Bucky does not have an arm right now, like this is the Wakandan vibranium arm that he was given that they dismantled real quick. You know what I'm saying? So we have no idea where what either Bucky got like another arm from Wakanda, and then or maybe this arm was like a backup that the Wakandans had, you know, in storage just in case Bucky lost his first one that they gave him. So who knows? We have
I feel like Nebula just showed up on Earth and like took it from him in his sleep, because she's obviously she's like almost half android at this
mm-hmm.
point, and so she knows. I think she'd know how to just like take off the arm,
Yeah.
you know, or like he got a new one. I don't know, but it's just it's so sweet. Rocket got the arm, and then Drax gets the decoration that they left behind on Earth from Mantis, which he loved. Gru gave everyone their little like displays. We got to see the end to the story that kind of started this off, which was, how Yondu ruined Christmas, but Peter gives his side of the story of how actually it didn't. Like, you know, Yondu goes and sees like what Quill got him, and it was his first little trinket, the same trinket we see from Volume One, which I thought was so sweet. He kind of set off his little collection, which I think is great because we know how excited he was about those trinkets and how much he liked them. So I think it just means that much more that his first one came from Quill,
Yeah.
you know. And of course we see Quill get his blaster. So honestly, all in all, so happy. I'm so happy that we finally got Guardians.
I'm just bringing up a picture real quick of the Thunderbolts, the picture that they released in Comic Con, and Bucky is standing with the vibranium arm forward. So the arm is there. The arm is gonna be in the Thunderbolt. So in terms of timeline, time frame, that whole confusing conversation, which I'm not gonna dive into right now, as far as timelines go, he has an arm here, and there's no telling when this Christmas is in comparison to the Thunderbolts.
Right, right. And maybe it's like the Thunderbolts, although it's going to release almost like a year after Guardians. Maybe it's set before the events of Guardians, and maybe you'll have a tidbit of how Nebula got the arm. Who knows if we're ever going to see that? Yeah, TBD,
Why can't we
TBD.
just listen? Can Feige? Can we get back chronological? Like I'm tired of playing the when is this game. You know what I'm saying? How about we all just stick to listen? It's about to be 2023 next year. Okay, so we finally caught up to 5 years after Infinity War. So how about from here on out, we just kind of play it how it was before Infinity War. By the year. I don't know. Makes sense to me.
I think so. I think so. I think that's not too much to ask at all. I feel like they're just trying to make it's easier on their part, really. Like just to make it chronological. So I think that's a fair
Yeah.
demand.
I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Who knows?
No, I think your requests are very reasonable. I think we've had really reasonable requests so far.
I want to talk to the guy who I think you sent me a thing. Um, it was a few months back saying there's a guy who is taking notes of all the time occurrences in the MCU. Like there's an actual guy. I want to talk to him. Can we get him on the line, or can we just find him? Like,
I'll find him. I'll send him an
yeah,
email.
let's try to find something and Insta be like, yo, real quick, if you could just kind of straighten some things out for us, thanks.
I'll reach out. I'll put down the to-dos.
All right.
Who is this guy? I feel like we would do a great job in this role. Like, why weren't we
I
contacted?
mean, if anything, we have a resume. It's to post in Instagram right now as far as a timeline. So
Boom.
we already did some of our research and showed y'all we can do this. So if anything, if y'all need us to be those people instead of that guy, you know what I'm saying? We can actually time it all out. We just need a few deep details to kind of iron out, and then we'll just take it from there.
We're waiting for your offer for a job post. Is what we're
Man,
saying,
listen,
MCU. We're
there is
here.
there is no
We're
job
here.
post. Just offer us the job. Don't even put it online. Not on Craigslist. Just go ahead.
It is for us
DM us, please.
specifically.
DM us at the Comic Cinematic Universe on Insta. You know what I'm saying? And on TikTok. On TikTok, it's only one C. And email us. Comic Cinematic Universe at gmail.com. So those are all of our contacts. Y'all know where to find us. Boom.
Done. Boom.
That
That
is
is
all.
all.
So I think you said that's it on your part as far as everything.
Yes, fleshed out all notes on my end. Anything you got that's left for the either
Uh,
special or the trailer?
no, I think we covered just about everything. Just as far as the special, I did kind of like we didn't bring it up, but I like how Peter Quill he ended up bringing it back and giving us the rest of the Yondu story because I feel like if anything, as of right now, in between Volume One and Volume Two, I think Yondu has been one of my favorite characters, and I'm glad that they brought him into this special. It wasn't just like we're gonna do a Guardian special and not even mention Yondu. So they brought him up, and then it's like it's like another moment to where you can't help but actually like the guy. He may seem like a jerk, but we didn't know the specifics of his and Peter's relationship. We knew that Peter was a Ravager. We knew that he stole, or not really stole, but picked him up to end up eventually giving to Ego, but he didn't. But we didn't really get to see father figure Yondu. We maybe got a little bit of that in volume two, but then like this special kind of solidified that. So I like Yondu more. You know what I'm saying? And it makes
It gets hard.
it just makes his death in volume two hurt a little bit more. It's like damn, no more Yondu.
I feel like they did such a good job in Volume 2, just like all of that, just kind of his placement with Quill. And I think it did a good job of explaining kind of the way that he talks to Quill in the first film. And I feel like you said, like, this just kind of solidifies it or just adds to that. And I really like it. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. That's Yondu. Volume 2.
R.I.P. Yondu. You know what I'm saying?
R.I.P.
Alright, so
Yeah.
I think we're gonna close out. So we'll be back next week. Next week are we back on Daredevil?
Comic-Con is this weekend, so actually let's keep it
Okay.
TBD because we might be talking
Okay.
Comic-Con.
We will keep it TBD, but we will be here for sure next Friday. And I'm gonna have to tell like I saw my schedule for next week. They tried to put me on the schedule Friday when I asked for Fridays off, so I'm probably not gonna show up to work that day and be like, I'm sorry, I gotta stream. I'm sorry, I can't session.
So you got sick. Everyone's getting sick right now. Lie.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it.
My throat, you know what I'm saying? I can't talk to people. But either way,
We'll be here.
until next time, we will catch y'all. Y'all have a great weekend. Grace, you have a great weekend. And I'll close this out. You've been doing such a wonderful job these past few weeks. I'll just go ahead and go for it. And thank you again for doing that. But this has been another episode of the Common Cinematic Universe with Chill and Grace. And we will catch y'all next Friday. Y'all have a good weekend. Later.
Goodbye, guys. Bye to you.